from Castle Goring, from Mickey, Aurora, and from me. I don't know what Aurora has got the scent of, but she's got the scent of something. So she is off sniffing. Kathy Plunkett says, with Aurora's permission, I now plunge in. Dear Lady C, I have just read where Harry and Meghan had a friendly talk with Prince Charles on his birthday and are hoping to spend Christmas with the family. Oh, yes. Don't you think this is so manipulative again? Just as they wish to rebrand themselves. I would love for Charles to say, oh, Meghan's dad and sister are coming for Christmas. The games idiots play and expect sensible people to be duped. Well, you know, I'm just insanely clever. Insanely is the operative word, but I just think it's clever to be insanely clever. So, well, it is clever if you are an idiot and you don't realize that the best thing is to keep your trap shut. It is extremely manipulative. It is extremely distasteful. It is... Now, I'm speaking because I have been speaking to someone close to the family. It is odious and distasteful in the extreme. They are trying every trick in the book to do a narcissistic triangulation whereby no matter what Charles and the rest of the royal family do, Harry and Meghan are the victims. Harry and Meghan have nobly decided to forego the apology they demanded, failing which they would never, never, never speak to and have anything more to do with the family ever again, because they deserved an apology. You know what you did. Yes, you do. You know what you did, and it was really awful, awful. And yes, oh, we can't speak to you. No, no, no. I have to protect my wife. Like protecting a goldfish from a bison. God. I tell you, the whole thing is just supremely distasteful. But that's just the start of it. Harry and Meghan, by making this announcement that they would go to Sandringham if they were invited, according to the person I spoke to, trying to put the royal family in a no-win position, whereby if they are not asked, you see, we're being mistreated, we're victims yet again. And if they are asked, well, if they weren't feeling guilty of all the terrible things they did to us, they wouldn't have asked us. Well, there are a few problems with this scenario. First of all, Harry will know that Christmas arrangements at Sandringham are made some considerable length of time in advance, because aside from anything else, Sandringham isn't that big, and it's a big family, and it doesn't have sufficient space to comfortably house everybody. That's the first thing. The second thing is, if Harry and Meghan show up, is the Prince of Wales going to show up? Because my understanding is, if Harry and Meghan walk into a room, he's going to walk out of it, unless it's an official thing, in which case he will grit his teeth and bear the anguish. As for Catherine, is she going to... You made me cry. Yes, you did. You mean, nasty woman. You just had a baby. And your fat little daughter, not well behaved like that Mulrooney child. No, my good friend Jessie's baby is so well behaved. Not like that 3-year-old tub of lard, or whatever it's called. Think she's going to be showing up? You think they're going to be eager for their children to be mixing with Meghan de Ville? Yes, I just love kids. Oh, I just love them. And what my nasty brother and sister might have said about keeping kids and animals away from me is just not true. I just love them. Glenn Close, step out of the picture. I'm going to step into my starring role. Are you beginning to get the drift? And as for dangling Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet, shades of Archie Bunker. Can you imagine naming a child after a fictional creature in a television show where the fictional creature is regarded as the end antagonist? And this is what you're naming your child after? Oh, how? I'm so elegant. I'm just so elegant. I take tea with a cocked finger. I'm just so classy. The whole thing is a massive setup, but they are so desperate now because they are failing at every turn. Nobody wants to touch them. Ari Emanuel, unless he's going to come up with a magic wand, is having his work cut out for him. Nobody wants to touch either of them. And the royal family, I am informed by the person I spoke to, is not prepared to have any interaction of any significance whatsoever with either Meghan or Harry until such time as they have assurances, which are never going to be forthcoming because they can't be, that Harry and Meghan would not betray the trust they have put in them and run to Gale or Amid Scabies. Oh, of course, we have no, Mr. Justice Warby. I had nothing to do with it. No, hand on heart. Well, let me try to find my heart. Where is it? Is my heart where the thing you're sitting on? Because I don't know where my heart is located. Please tell me, Mr. Justice Warby, where I should put my hand when I say hand on heart. Because I really never, ever did. Neither H nor I ever leaked anything, not a thing, to Mr. Scabies, not a thing. No, never. Oh, sorry, I forgot. The 2 magic words, Jason Knorf. I think you're beginning to get the drift. So, so distasteful. A betrayal. But it's not the double betrayal that you think it is. There will be no telephone call this week, and the palace will not be confirming now or at any time in the future that there was ever a telephone call last week. That's right. Make of that what you will. I have been very careful how I have couched this because I'm very attached to my money and I don't intend to be stripped of any of it, not even by truth tellers like H&M. J. Fra says, Lady C, I really enjoy your historical videos. Thank you. I do too. You bring it all to life. Thank you very much. That's really flattering. Question. I described the Harkle PR media stories, phone call, Christmas invitation, etc. as a bullying, manipulating public opinion and trying to shame people into giving into them. The royal family has little recourse against this behaviour. How do you see this pattern of behaviour ending? Is there a point where the media will stop participating in this game? Or has the media really just become a giant gossip mill? You mean, has it stopped being one? It always was. How do you think the media started? They started as pamphlets. They were pamphleteers. They were purloiners of gossip. But let me move on and continue to read the question. I feel the credibility of journalism today has reached rock bottom. Would you agree or have a different view? There have always been yellow journalists, and there will always be. Journalism started as pamphleteers, primarily. Modern journalism really started in the 18th century. Satirical pamphleteers puncturing the balloons of their leaders, primarily in England. That's why we have such a vigorous free press in a way practically no other country does, because we've always had a vigorous free press, while all of the European monarchies, which were basically all autocracies, had their press muzzled, with the exception of the illegal pamphleteers that the Duc d'Orléans used to pay to churn out filth about Marie Antoinette and her supposed inamorata, Gabrielle, la Princesse de Polignac. All lies, of course. But it did the damage. Then, gradually, as the 19th century evolved into the 20th century with industrialization, you then really had the heyday of Western journalism in the United Kingdom and the United States in the first half, maybe even the first three-quarter of the last century. The first three quarters of the last century, I think, would be more accurate. And since when there has been a massive decline in standards, partly caused by the internet and 24/7 news content. That's a part of the reason. And the rest of the decline has been due to the rampant politicization, which always existed, but it existed in tandem with honesty, honor, decency, and high principles. When last did you hear the words honesty, decency, high principles? They don't seem to go along with Louboutin, Dior. Birkin bags. We live in a very secular, materialistic world, far more so than when I was young. That has a lot to do with it. When will Harry and Meghan's manipulative behavior, and really, you're right, it is a form of bullying. It's also a form of blackmail. When will it stop? There will be a terminus, but they are either going to have to be completely unmasked and shown to be creatures that are no longer worth being reported upon at all. So they will have to cross the Rubicon. At the moment, they are in celebrity land. Celebrity land is where no matter how badly behaved you are, it's still of interest. Only when you cross over into something supremely distasteful, for instance, Jimmy Savile territory, which I would not for a second accuse either of them or anybody concerned with this of. But what I'm saying is when something is so odious, that something happens that's so odious that the public loses all sympathy. And once they do that, they lose interest. It's so Harry and Meghan, to become unnewsworthy, will have to do something or be shown to have done something that puts them beyond the pale. Until then, they're going to remain newsworthy. But don't despair. Every time they pull a stunt, such as the stunts they've been pulling recently, we're happy to accept an invitation to Christmas at Sandringham if one will be offered to us, because we're just so family orientated. I mean, you couldn't make any of this up. Well, none of it is going to continue indefinitely. Something has to give. At the moment, it's not given. And Meghan and Harry, Meghan in particular, Meghan is desperate at this point. Everything she has done and everything she has touched has turned to ashes. She is desperate. It is possibly the swan song of a desperado. All these claims, all these stories, careless of the consequences. Will it amount to anything, or will it not? Let's wait and see. Let's wait and see. Because my understanding is that there is fury behind the scenes at the gross manipulation and the calculatedness of it all. Calculated to embarrass the king, embarrass William, show them in as negative a light as possible, and show Harry and Meghan to be sweet and wonderful. And remember, we did not help Amid Scabies with that book, Endgame. We don't have an endgame. Our endgame is charity. Our endgame is compassion. Our endgame is community. Our endgame is security in the billions. But we're not going to say that, no. And our endgame is fame and fortune. But we're not going to say that either. No, we're noble creatures. I hope that gets the message across. J.H. says, are the diabolical duo trying to wheedle back to the royal family to protect them from the court cases? I can't believe they will succeed. Too many lies and accusations. They are trying to embarrass the family and make themselves ratified as victims to coincide with Amid Scabies' rubbish book, to distract from the astonishing matter of the two most senior members of Invictus games having been made, let me rephrase that, having been put out to fodder. Let's put it that way. All of this is Meghan also hoping that if she throws enough stuff at everybody, something will take, something will stick. Nothing's sticking, nothing's taking. It's too much, too soon, too confusing, and too obvious. She is more transparent than freshly cleaned glass. Kismet says, Dear Lady C, I saw the latest video of the narcissist. See how she pushes the poor lady who taps her on the shoulder away. The reference to our late Queen Elizabeth II was the last straw. I am an Australian. I have grown up singing God Save the Queen at school, at sporting events, her beautiful face in all our coins and banknotes. If the king can't step back and kick Val's scum to the curb, then I'm sorry. I don't want to be part of what the Commonwealth has to represent. Kismet, may I make the point? There is military wisdom. Never interfere with your enemy while he is destroying himself. The royal family don't need to kick Meghan and Harry to the curb. Meghan and Harry are kicking themselves to the curb. With each of their antics, with each of their pretensions, with each of their stupidities, they unmask themselves and reveal themselves to be the man and woman of straw that they truly are. Yes, I would say I get your frustration. I get why you're annoyed. But can you imagine what would have happened if the king or the late queen had intervened and not allowed Harry and Meghan enough rope with which to hang themselves? Can you imagine what would have happened? Oh, the race card would have been played immediately. You would have heard that the family were racist, which of course they've been accusing the family of being in any event, but the cacophony would have been deafening, because people would have thought, well, maybe Harry and Meghan's claims have some merit. This way they can see they have no merit. They also would have been able to say they have no compassion for us because we're suffering from mental illnesses. We've got mental health issues. Blah, de, blah, de, blah. Well, I did see the latest video. I looked at it, Meghan on the black carpet, as she before the board at Variety. Now, I have to tell you, I've done this many a time. and you are on for the blink of an eyelid and not much more. You're supposed to be quickly on and quickly off, because the photographers are all there lined up, and the television crews, they're all lined up, and you don't need to pose for 4 minutes. You only need to pose for whatever, 20, 30, 40 seconds. Their cameras go, I mean, it's like a machine gun going rat-a-tat-a-tat. There's the sound of the cameras, and the cameras take multiple pictures. So, and you know, people say, "No, look this way, Lady C, look that way." Up, and you turn very slightly so that each person gets you full face and in other. Well, there was Meghan. Mr. DeMille, I'm gonna have a Harry Met Sally moment. There are cameras. I'm so thrilled. Mickey, honey, quick. Mummy feels a head cold coming on. Go and get her some Coke. She needs something to flush out her system. Did you see the size of Meghan's pupils? My goodness, I didn't know eyes were all pupils. Was that ecstasy? Or was that flying high into ecstasy? Well, I have to say, I did see that young woman trying to get her off, well, really, because it's like what you do is you go on, you're there, and then you step away, and then you are interviewed briefly. So Meghan is there hogging the show, and the poor girl has to try to get her off, and she's pushing Meghan to go on into the direction of the microphone. And there is Meghan pushing her back. I've not finished posing. I just look fabulous. Fabulous. Well, I have to say, I thought she looked as good as she possibly could look. It was very interesting to see how Meghan, but we'll get to that in a little while. I won't do it now. I'll speak about it in the next question. But I am reliably informed that Meghan was not on the original guest list, that Ari Emanuel is the one who called in favors and got her to attend. But they weren't totally playing ball. So Meghan sat in Siberia. Oh, sorry, table 12. Same thing as Siberia. And I understand she never shut her mouth once, and she was just smiling, and she was on a roll. I'm just I am gonna be the biggest star of all time. My enthusiasm knows no bounds. Sorry, my enthusiasm knows no bounds. I'm just fabulous. Oh, yes. The hysteria, I gather, was beyond belief. Takohamo Olsen says, "Hi, Lady C. Did you see Meghan's dress she wore on the red carpet, in quotes, the black carpet? Plain. The colour was bland and off-putting. It had a baggy shape to it, and I don't know whether anyone else saw it, but I noticed a seam line, and I noticed inner white paneling of the dress when she walked. Ugh! Surely a necklace choker and a blingier evening band would have improved her look. Just to know your opinion on this ghastly frock. Well, remember, you mustn't be unkind. Taco Harmo Olsen, because remember, Meghan was forced to wear beige pretty much the whole time she was in the royal family, even though everybody else in the royal family always wears colour. She was forced to wear beige or black or grey. And she's still wearing beige or black or grey because she's royal and she's got to abide by the rules, even if she's made them up and they're only in her head or in Amid Scabies' panegyric hagiography. Well, not only is the dress yet again a refutation of her claim that the royal family made her wear beige, because she's either in black, grey or beige all the time. But now I speak as a Deansley student from the Fashion Institute of Technology, who was an A-list student throughout the whole time I was there in apparel design and in draping and pattern making. That dress was interesting, irrespective of the colour, and I actually thought she looked as good as she could look. She forgot to be Medusa, so the hair was actually kempt for the first time in years. Of course, she doesn't really have any decent jewellery, poor darling, and I'm certainly not going to be lending her any of mine. I mean, she only has dinky little stuff, and because it came from Cartier, she thinks it's so grand, and it couldn't be more tacky. It's mistress jewellery, but not even mature mistress jewellery. It's low-grade girlfriend mistress jewellery, the sort of jewellery that a man who is 50-something years old and not in love with his bit on the side, usually in her 20s, early 20s, and he will give her little trinkets, something from Cartier for 2,000 or 3,000, when of course, if he really loved her, he'd be giving her something for 200,000, but certainly at least 20,000 or 30,000. But so, I mean, she really has tacky mistress jewellery and not mature mistress jewellery, as I've made the point, and I'm going to reiterate it. It's jeune fille mistress jewellery. It's mistresses starting out in the world who haven't yet learned to work that bod to the full extent that they'll get megabucks jewellery. And she didn't have on any decent jewellery, but then she doesn't have decent jewellery. I've never seen her wear anything that she acquired save through his family that even approximated decent. If somebody gave me any of it, I would throw it back in their faces, man, woman, or child. And I would certainly never condescend to spend a penny of my money, hard-earned or otherwise, on rubbish like that. I'm not in awe of Cartier or the name. I'm in awe of the item itself. So she doesn't have the accessories that a woman of her rank and stature should have. And she doesn't have the taste either to acquire any of it. she'd sooner spend $10,000 on a dress than buy a cheaper dress and save up the money and buy a decent piece of jewelry for $150,000. I mean, you talk about having no understanding of how money works or how it should work, or to put it another way, she's tacky new money without the taste that some new money people have. She has no taste. And as for the dress, it is a semi-cowl. It has a center seam that runs from hair to the waist. Meghan decided because she's got to be different, I'm just so classy and I'm so chic and I'm just a fashionista to kill them all. So she takes the dress and she yanks it over one shoulder, in the process distorting the straight line, which, if you had the semi-cowl, would be a feature. It's supposed to be a feature. It's supposed to be straight. It's supposed to match your nose, no matter how badly it's been reconstructed 2 or 3 times. It's supposed to match your mouth, no matter how many horse teeth you have. And it is supposed to go match your chin and then go straight down to your belly button. Didn't happen because she yanked it to one side. So the other armhole made absolutely no sense at all, design-wise. But my understanding is Meghan's desperate to get some sort of deal with some designer. Well, Meghan, sweetie pie, why don't you try Ozempic Rexia, the latest designer? Oh, sorry, that's what you're going to allow people to think you're suffering from? Pathetic. I mean, the woman is a study in crassness. Donna Casey says, is the Invictus charity fund's misappropriation why the US pair won't back in the royal family as legal cover? King Charles III et al. Should avoid them like the plague until that charity is fully audited. Donna Casey, we need to be careful what language we use. There is no suggestion of misappropriation of funds. Misspending is not the same as misappropriating. And frittering away money that could have gone to the cause, but goes to an even worthier Harry and Meghan, patron and wife. This one and his wife. I'm just so classy. Can you believe it? I wear shorts and flip-flops to march in front of the troops. I'm so classy. She is desperate, and it's a combination of reasons why she's desperate. But are they trying to get back in with the royal family? Or are they trying to poke the royal family in the eye? And indeed, did Harry make any of these announcements? Or was Harry collusive in any of these announcements being made? These are questions that you should be asking yourself. Because my understanding is that Harry has begun to let me rephrase that. The guild has, to an extent, come off the lily. Who's responsible? I know who I think is responsible. And nothing's going to happen with Invictus games. Absolutely nothing. It's just not going to happen. So let's wait and see what doesn't happen, because it's not going to happen. And the antics they are a distraction from what is going on with Invictus, but they're also a distraction from all the other failures and complete lack of success. That's what's really going on. H. Money says, if the evil duo had just gone to the US and done some honest work, and with the money that was given to them to live on for a year, allegedly, they could have bought a nice house in a cheaper place, which they could afford, instead of trying to be not millionaires, but billionaires overnight. MM wanted everything overnight without having to work too hard for the dollars. In my opinion, that's why they have stuffed themselves up royally. I couldn't agree more. She has to an extent done what the Duchess of Windsor did. The Duchess of Windsor, if you read her autobiography and if you know anything about the way she functioned, she did not understand the limits of the power and influence of the royals. And she was dealing with the king. Harry isn't a king. Barring that much hoped for plane crash, and we won't say who's hoping for it. We're not going to be mean and nasty and catty, because maybe no one's hoping for it. But if it happens, well, wouldn't that be just fabulous? Well, barring that plane crash, William and George are going to be the next kings, not Harry. But she was greedy, and she is impatient. She's always been impatient. She's always been greedy and needy, and I know that from people who have known her all her life. She has always been greedy and needy, but she was able to keep it in check to an extent until she got involved with Harry, and royalty went to her head in a massive way and blew whatever restraint she had out of the window. Since when, she has been treating us to the most unsavory display of egotism that has been ever known to modern man. And of course they weren't going to buy a lesser house. What are you talking about? I'm the Duchess of Sussex. I'm Princess Meghan, Her Royal Highness Princess Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex. I've got to live like royalty. Everybody's got to know I'm important. I mean, you surely don't think I'm going to fly commercial. I mean, and you surely don't think I'm going to live in anything but a fabulous castle or a palace. I mean, I'm classy. Classy. K-L-L-A-S-S-I-E. Classy with a capital K. Christine Pitsy says, I think it interesting. Amid Scabies posted his California trip last summer, and there were no pictures of him and the Sussex pair. So sneaky. As soon as he was stupid enough to post his trip, It said it all. Now the book is a joke before it's out. Endgame. Amid Scabies is trying to tell us that Harry and Meghan had nothing to do with it. But people very close to the royal family had something to do with it and have been treacherous enough to tell him all sorts of lies and regurgitate all sorts of rubbish. Yes, I mean, we believe it all. Addict says, Lady C, the Duchess of York, has been slated by viewers for her painful, in quotes, guest presenting on This Morning with Alison Hammond and Dermot O'Leary. What did you think of her if you saw it? Did you find her as awful as the Standard did? No, I didn't. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be mean and didactic. And I'm going to start with the worst. Then it will get better. Sarah York introduced herself as Sarah, the Duchess of York. She knows as well as I do that there is no such title, just as how there is no such title as a Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex. You are either the Duchess of York, or then you are Sarah, Duchess of York, without the. Same applies to Meghan. Meghan is not Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex. She is the Duchess of Sussex. I was really rather surprised that Sarah would have committed such a solecism. But let's mark it down to nerves and be kind about it all. And as for the rest, well, let me tell you, she was, I thought, well, you know, it was her first time, and she was being very correct and trying to be royal and prim and proper, which really isn't Sarah York at all, let me tell you. I thought she came across rather well. I thought she's not going to set the world on fire. But then most of the presenters don't. She interviewed Giles Brandreth. No surprise there. Giles is a great friend of the royals, in particular the Queen, the present Queen, not the late Queen. And she introduced Giles. Giles is witty and entertaining and a safe pair of hands. And then she was giving romantic advice, and she was rather sweet because she kept on speaking about saucy underwear, and she actually gave good advice to spice up a relationship that's a bit in the rut. And of course, Sarah knows all about spice and being spicy. I mean, she was quite the spicy chick in her day, let me tell you. If walls could speak, my goodness. Oh, yes, Sarah certainly was definitely an expert in that field. But no, I did not think she was painful. I thought, given a chance, she would relax. I'm not comfortable, though, with anybody attached to the royal family being a guest presenter for any length of time on a television show. I'm sorry. It's one thing to have a podcast or a YouTube channel. It's quite another to be on mainstream television. I think it is unsuitable. It is begging for trouble, and trouble will come. Let's wait and see. Hopefully it's a one-off. Courage, Love and Laughter says, love seeing you on television, but always wonder why you've never been interviewed alongside people like Dr. Tessa Dunlop. I actually did appear on a show with Tessa Dunlop and also with Andrew Morton and with Mackenzie, what's his name? Craig Mackenzie. No, yeah. Kelvin, not Craig. Craig's the brother that worked on my first Anna book, trying to get it serialized. Before that ghastly cow Eve Pollard pulled the plug on it, breached the contract, involved me in years of litigation, and lost her job in the process. So I did appear on television with Tessa Dunlop, who I found argumentative, ignorant, tiresome, and a real pill. And if the truth be known, by and large, I don't like rows. And I'm certainly not going to take part, happily or willingly, in rows on television with aggressive, oikish, pretentious people like Tessa Dunlop. She has a chip on her shoulder bigger than a brick. And I found her tiresome in the extreme. And I wouldn't want to be on television alongside, being interviewed alongside anybody like Tessa Dunlop. Another one I have told them I don't want, because I was put on once with her quite recently on GB News, was Nina Miss Cow. Cow by name, cow by nature. She's one of the most hoggish, to mix my metaphors, cows, to rarely mix my metaphors, and mix the breeds as well, that it's ever been my displeasure to run across. I first ran across her in the early 90s, and then I, these people, they think, because they have nothing to say, that if they say it abusively and loudly enough and aggressively enough, it's going to give them some gravitas. It doesn't. It just makes them massive inconveniences. And I have told all the people who asked me on television, I don't want to mix with people like that. I don't want to be in the same studio as them. I don't want to be seated beside them. I don't want to have a conversation with them. I'm certainly not prepared to stoop to having an argument with them. There's no way any television company can pay me enough money to willingly go and sit down beside somebody like that. It's happened inadvertently, and it's only ever happened once with each of them, except with Nina Miskow. It happened twice. In 1992, I think it was, and then earlier this year or last year on GB News. And I told them afterwards, I said, don't ever ask me on with that cow, Miss Nina Miskow. So I hope that answers the question. And I think you might actually get the utter disdain that I have for people like that. And I think we're going to end with what I thought was a really witty comment from somebody called Cedar Snack. And I'm going to read it out to you because I think sometimes some of your comments are pure gold. And this is absolutely, in my opinion, wonderful. And I hope you will agree with me. I think it absolutely captures everything that's been going on perfectly. I quote, "I wonder if it's starting to dawn on Megsy and Hank that the monumental display of royal atonement they've demanded may not be forthcoming. But hey, you know what's easier than actually extracting an apology? Calling Gayle King and claiming the apology you received last night was lovely. Pa cried and admitted Harry was always his favourite. William sheepishly confessed and begged forgiveness for all of the horrible, meanie pants things he has been doing for the past 40 years. Kate got on the phone and told Meghan how much she regretted being a terrible witch and making Meghan cry. Through her sniffles, Kate, and may I interject at that point and say, and these are not sniffles that have anything to do with Harry and Meghan sniffles. Kate had tearful sniffles. Through her sniffles, Kate admitted she only behaved badly because she was so consumed with envy. Meghan's beauty and intelligence and style and kindness and charm and gracious dedication to social awareness was so intimidating that Kate felt threatened and lashed out. Everyone at the palace finally understood that no one did enough to protect you, Meghan, and Harry from all of the atrocious bullies on the staff and in the press. They knew you were shining stars, and they tried to dim your light. You have been hurt so badly that just saying I'm sorry isn't enough. So they begged you to please come home so they can show you how much things have changed. Yup, that's totally what happened in the background, of course. And I say, was this captured by Backgrid? Hounded by the paparazzi. Backgrid. Jeff Rayner. Carl Lawson. All my favourite people who I don't know. And on that note, I'll say thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been of some interest to you. If it has, please remember to keep the questions and comments coming in so I will know what you want us to be speaking about. Thank you so much. God bless and goodbye. And if you have enjoyed this, please like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and take good care. Bye-bye.